everyone, it's Lindy. I'm from Pink Whisper Designs. Today we're going to create this fun slimline card using a brand new set from Art Impressions, and this is called the Christmas Train Set. Let's take a closer look at this set, and you can see how packed full of images this is. It's got everything you need to build the cutest little Christmas train. It's got penguins. It's got the two little sidecars. One has a snowman, one has the gift packages, and one is empty so that you can fill it with whatever you like. You have some candy canes and some extra wheels if you want to pop up the wheels. It also has two sentiments and the coordinating dies. So I'll use my steel die cutters. We'll go ahead and cut those apart. And then I've placed some Strathmore Bristol Smooth 100-pound cardstock into my Misty stamp positioner. We're going to go ahead and ink that up with the VersaFine Onyx Black ink. And I'm using that Stampendable stamp press to press those out. So for coloring, I'm going to be using the Zig Clean Color Real Brush pens, and I'm starting off with Carmine Red. All the colors I'll be using will be listed in the upper left-hand corner as we're going along. And to do my blending, you can see that I'm using the Zig Blender pen. And I also want to point out that I did stamp some extra candy canes and a few extra of the holly and berries and also those wheels. I don't end up using the wheels because I had already colored in all the wheels, and then I realized that if I colored those in, I'd just be popping them up over the ones I already did. So I'm not going to color those in, but you certainly could. And I'm using just the combination of kind of reds, blues, and greens to do this card. And I'm going to pretty much stick to that. And I'll use some silvers and grays, obviously, for the penguins and for some of the trim work on these little train cars. So this is just the sweetest little thing. Now, of course, you could have as many train cars as you want. You could put anything in this one that you wanted to. You could put, you know, some of your other little critters. We have lots of little critters in the collection at Art Impressions that you could select to have hanging over the little car here. We have that brand new Halloween set that had a little kitty cat, an owl, a little frog. So you could grab those as well and just cut away the pumpkin and have those kind of sticking over the side of the train car. So that would be fun as well. So personalize these any way you like, but I'm going to stick to the penguins, and you can see that there's 4 penguins. And what I love about these is they're in motion. So they're kind of looking different directions, and there's a lot of movement to them, and I really like when you have that. Because then when you're placing them on your scene, it just looks more interesting. I'll use the light gray and the gray to finish up those little train cars and to finish up the engine of the train as well. And then when I don't list the color, you'll know that I'm just repeating a color that I've already used. And of course, you could use a water brush to do your blending if you prefer. These are water-based markers, so that would work perfectly fine. For the scene, we're going to create a slimline card. I just thought since with these 3 cars, I needed enough space to kind of spread those out a little bit. So we'll create a little snowy border, and then I'm going to show you how to piece some paper together. For the plaid background on our card, the paper I was using was the Art Impressions 6x6 paper pad. So it wasn't quite long enough to do the entire slimline panel. So we're going to do a little piecing together, but in the end it won't show, and I'll give you a few tricks for how to cover that up as well. So here you can see I'm just going to continue blending out those little train cars, and then I'm going to add more of the gray, the light gray, and then some more of that darker gray for some shadowing. Now, what we'll also be doing after we finish coloring these in is really personalizing the little train cars as well. I'm going to be using a gel pen just to add some polka dots and plaid and stitches and stripes, whatever you want to add. So again, this is a great way to personalize these. I'm using warm gray number 6 on the wheels. I like to use that instead of the black. I know I've said this many times, but sometimes the black has a little bit of purple in it. And so I'm finding this warm gray number 6 seems to be a go-to color for me when I'm looking to do black. And I don't always want that jet black look. I want a little bit of a lighter effect. And we'll go back to the blue just to finish up the wheel. And then I did add a little dot of blue to the center of each of those other wheels as well. Just again to tie everything together. So you can see that I'm really sticking to this color combination. And for the holly, berry, and leaves, I'll use the 2 shades of green. Now, what I will do on these that I also like to do is add a little bit of yellow. Sometimes it just makes these pop and gives a nice highlight. So I started off with just the 2 greens, and then I wasn't really sure that I like that. I'll add a little bit of the red to the berries and just kind of like bringing the color out towards the edges a little bit. I'll go back to those leaves later on, and for the candy canes, I'm just going to put a stripe of color on the inside of the candy cane and just pull that around. Here's where I grab that yellow, and you'll see what a difference it really does make, and I'll show you that up closer in a minute. For the cheeks on the little penguins, I use the sugared almond pink. And then for the body of the penguins, I'm starting with the light gray. And then I will come in with some gray, but you could certainly do both colors at the same time. I just wasn't exactly sure how dark I wanted to make these. So now I'm adding the gray, and I'll start to pull that in. Now I'm just going to color one of these on camera, and then I will do the rest off camera because I did them all the exact same way. I've got a little piece of scrap paper there because now my hand is over some of those images that I've already colored. So if I put some scrap paper down, I can kind of protect what I've already been coloring. So let's finish up this little penguin. And if you get too much ink, just grab it with your blender pen off the paper and just scribble it onto your scrap paper. And you do want to scribble that blender pen onto your scrap paper as you're changing colors. I've switched over to the turquoise green to do this little scarf. And then for the other scarves, I'll do the blues and the reds. So again, just kind of sticking to that same color palette. Just adding a little shadowing there. And for each of these, I did the scarf and the hats the same color on each of them. And a little bit of gray on the top part of the hat there. That's this little section here. And then sand for the beak. The sand color has a little bit of an orangey tint to it. So I really liked how that looked. So here's a closer look at everything we've colored in, and there you can see I didn't color in those extra little wheels because I had already colored these in down at the bottom, but you certainly could. With a white gel pen, I'm going to add plenty of highlights to all of these little pieces, just to make everything pop out nicely. For the candy canes, I'm using the white gel pen to add some stripes to the candy cane. And I did that for all of those. And then for this little sidecar, I decided to add some polka dots. I've got some larger dots and then some smaller dots in between. For this one, I'm going to add a little plaid design, kind of like a little diamond plaid. So I'm just kind of going on an angle one way, and then I'm switching and going the other way. You could use a black permanent marker here as well, or any of your colored gel pens would be really cute. I did add a little bit of pink flamingo to that package and then a few dots across the top. And then for the engine of the train, I decided to add a little bit of like these little hash marks. I wasn't so sure I really loved that when I was done, but once we add the holly and berries over top, I really liked it. So sometimes just keep going. Don't worry about starting over. You can always fix it or, put something over top of it. So I just left it for now. And here's a closer look at all those images with the white highlights. Now again, this set has the coordinating dies, which is fantastic. So I'm going to tape those down with a little bit of tape, and I'm going to run those through my Spellbinders Platinum Scout machine. And if you haven't seen this little machine yet, it is just adorable. It's about 3 inches wide. And I'll use the platform base, the platform top, and the cutting plate. I'll place down my images, and then I'll put that other cutting plate on top. And we can go ahead and run that through. And then I ran all the rest of these through off camera, but I'll quickly show you these little penguins and how sweet they are. And now here's everything cut. For our card base, we'll have a standard slimline card base. So the cardstock measured 7 inches by 8.5 inches. I scored it at 3.5 inches and folded it in half. And then for the pattern paper, I'm using the Christmas Magic paper pack from Art Impressions. Again, this is a double-sided paper, but it is only 6 by 6 inches. We're going to need a larger piece, and I'll show you what we're going to do. I've got my Slimline Die Set from Art Impressions. I'll grab that second largest die, and let's go ahead. And I thought I was going to need 2 pieces of this paper, but I ended up just using the leftovers from this one. I'm going to set that other one aside, and I'll tape this down, make sure it's nice and straight so that our plaid is nice and straight. And then you can see I have enough left over to continue that pattern. So first, let's go ahead and cut this first section. I've taped it down with a little bit of Post-it tape, and I'll run that through the die cutting machine first. And that's going to give us a nice stitched edge all the way around. And then I need to cut this other section. Now I do want it to line up nicely. So you can see I'm matching up that plaid pattern, and I'm going to tape that together just temporarily, just to hold that for me while I line up the die. So I'm going to make sure the left side of the paper is lined up with the left side of the die. And then I'm going to tape down the right hand side of this die. And I don't need that tape down the center anymore. I'm just going to put that around the edges of the die. And now I can just die cut this right hand section. So I'll cut away that excess. Let's go ahead and run this through. Now we can just tape these two together. And don't worry, it's really not going to show. And we are going to tie a ribbon right over the seam. And very little of this shows. This is just a really easy way to finish this off. So I put some tape on the back, and I'm sliding it right back into my die just so that I can get it the exact length that I want it to be. This helps me. I don't have to measure anything. I just pop it in the die and tape it together. I added a little bit of the Tombow mono tape. You could use some glue as well if you want to slide it around a little bit just to be sure it's straight. So there we have that panel. Let's go back to this die set and grab that third largest die. And we're going to cut 2 of these. One is going to be for our background, and one is going to be for our snowy border. For the border, I've got the Lawn Fawn. These are like the little hillside borders, and you can select the one that you like best. These are the Slimline Simple Stitched Hillside Border dies. I'm going to line this up, and I really just want to go corner to corner there on the right and the left. I don't want this to be too high because we do want to have enough room for our train. So I'll run that through. That'll continue that stitch border for me so that I'll have stitching on the top of the snowy border and around the edges of that entire panel. And that'll sit right on this other panel. Let's go ahead and ink up our sky. So I've got Tumbled Glass and Mermaid Lagoon, and I've got a blending brush, like a medium-sized blending brush. I'm going to start off with that Tumbled Glass all over. And these are the Tim Holtz Distress Oxide inks, so we're going to get a really nice blend with these. Really easy to do your blending. So again, I'll do the entire panel in the lighter color. And then what we're going to do with the Mermaid Lagoon is start at the bottom and bring that color up. So we'll have like a little shadowing right along that snowy border. So I'm just checking to see where that border is going to be. And then I'm going to just put that ink down, just plenty of it down here at the bottom, and then I'll go back and do some blending. I did clean off that brush off to the side on a towel just to take off some of that excess, and then I continued blending that out. So you can go back and check that border against that. If you need to add more ink, you can go ahead and do that. Now I've got the bleed proof white ink, and I'm placing a little bit down on my glass medium mat, and I'll spritz it with a little bit of water. And I'm using a small number 0 paintbrush to do my spattering. It will give me some small, tiny little spatters as well as some larger ones. So I'm going to go ahead and spatter that entire panel. That'll give it a really pretty snowy look. I'll set that aside to dry for a little while. Once that was dry, I came back with my Wink of Stella clear glitter pen. I'm squeezing a little bit onto my glass medium mat and also spritzing that with a little bit of water, and then I'll go ahead and spatter that glitter all over this panel as well, and that'll give it a really pretty look. Now for the snowy border, I've got some 1/8 inch foam strips, and I'm going to place those across the bottom and a little bit up on that arch of the border, but I don't want to go all the way to the top because we will be tucking our train in there. So I want to leave enough room to tuck the train down behind this snow. So let's line this up. And now we can glue our background paper down. I'm using the Nouveau Deluxe Adhesive. And we'll just glue this flat on the front of the card. And then we can go ahead and glue down our sky and our snowy border. So you see not that much of that plaid will show, just enough. And you really can't see that overlapping. Let's start adding all of these little items, and this is the fun part for me. I just love this. This is so cute and so fun to put together. Now I did grab some red and white baker's twine, and I'm putting a little dot of glue on this center little train car, and I'm going to attach that baker's twine in the center. And then I'm going to use some 3D foam squares to pop up the rest of this. And then I'll place that right down on the center of my card. So let's remove the backing, and then we can glue this down. And again, I want to tuck it behind that snow just a little bit. And let's do this next one. Now I'll add some 3D foam squares to this, and then we'll just tack that down that baker's twine the same way. So you do want to kind of determine where that baker's twine is going to be. And it's a little tricky because you want to pull it nice and taut as you're laying this down. What I did was just kind of pulled it, and then I pushed the little train car down onto the paper, and that kind of stuck that twine in place. So let's do one more and I could show you that. And here I'm just playing around with my little guys, and I wanted one to be driving the train. So I grabbed this little guy because his arm is kind of sticking out, so I slid him in that train car so that his arm is kind of waving. And then I tacked him down with a little bit of glue. We'll pop up this car, and then again, don't forget that little dab of glue so that we can hold that twine in place. And again, I'll remove the backing. And then I'm just going to kind of push down on that center where that glue is to pick up that twine. Now let's go ahead and add our little penguin. This one I put some a foam square up at the top of him, and then I just put glue on the bottom because he's kind of sitting on that car. Then I'm going to add all of my little holly and berries using some 3D foam tape. And again, I thought once I added this to the front of the engine, I thought that really finished it off. And then These little guys I'm going to just position around the rest of the train. This one I'll glue flat, and this one I'll pop up on the top and then glue it to those packages. And do keep in mind that all of the products I'm using today are listed and linked down below and also on my blog. For the candy canes, I'm just going to tuck those in here and there, and that gives a nice pop of that red color. Let's go ahead and add these last two. Now we do need to add a sentiment, and I wasn't exactly sure as I was building the card where that sentiment was going to be. But I decided I wanted to put it right in the center of that little snowbank. So I know I probably should have done that before I assembled the card, but again, I wasn't exactly sure what I was going to be doing. So I thought I might add a little banner or something, but in the end, I thought there was just so much going on that I would grab this little sentiment from the set. Actually, we're going to use both of these. I'm going to use this Choo Choo Merry Christmas to You on the front of the card. I've placed it in my large Misty. This is a 12 by 12 Misty, and it's great for when you need to add a sentiment after your card is complete, because it will fit just about anything that's really large, up to 12 inches by 12 inches. I'm going back to that red baker's twine, and I'm going to add it to the front of my card. And basically, I did end up moving that bow off to the left-hand side because in the end, I decided that would cover that little seam a little bit better for me. So although I tied it to the right, you'll see that I moved it off to the left-hand side. And again, that covers that little seam. And then I'm going to put a little dot of glue behind that just so it doesn't slide off, because it is down towards the bottom of the card. For a little bit of glossy finish on those berries, I've got the Diamond Glaze. This is just a clear glaze, and I'm putting it over top of those little berries. And then I've got the Wink of Stella clear glitter pen again, and I'm going to add some glitter here and there. I did add it to all those little candy canes and the little bow on the package. So I hope you enjoyed taking a look at this brand new Christmas set. I will show you the inside of the card so you can see I used the sentiment from that same set that says all aboard for a Christmas filled with joy and cheer, and added a little holly and berry to the inside just to finish it off. So I really hope you enjoyed today's video. If you did, please hit the like button and subscribe. And don't forget to hit that notification bell so that you don't miss a single video. Thanks so much for joining me today. Really do appreciate it. And I hope you all have a great day. Take care. Bye-bye.